My name is Alini Da Fonseca. I'm with the Coalition on Human Needs and Partnership for America's Children, and we're presenting today's webinar in partnership with Voices for America's Children, Code for America, and Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. And I'm going to turn it over to Ife Finch-Floyd from Georgia Budget and Policy Institute to kick us off.
Thanks, Alini. Hi, everyone. Again, I'm Ife Finch-Floyd, Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. You may have received some emails from me, so thank you for attending, or from my colleagues at Georgia Voices for Georgia's Children. So I wanted to, before we begin, I just wanted to talk about how to amplify the message that people can still sign up for the child tax credit. We want to do a social media day next Thursday, October 13th, and would love for people to participate and groups to participate. We know there are varying levels of capacity and everybody's bandwidth is stretched, but hopefully groups, organizations, individuals, and even public officials can participate to raise awareness about the CTC still being available for families who did not sign up initially, particularly those with the lowest income. To make it easy, GBPI has a toolkit for everyone to access. I'm going to just drop it into the chat, this link, and I can probably reshare it a little later, and we can send it out with our resources. But it has actually a number of different resources and different ways for folks to engage. But the social media posts are the first set of examples. However, there's also some flyers that organizations can share with, if they are direct service providers, they can share with their clients. And they are not only included in English, but also in a few other languages as well. So please share those far and wide. And we want to continue this drumbeat. The social media day, yes, is next Thursday, but GBPI will continue to post on social media weekly up until November 15th. But as we're going to learn, November 15th is the last day this year to get families to sign up for this enhanced child tax credit. But there could be more opportunity for us to continue this effort and beyond. So certainly we're lifting this up because of the coming deadline for this year, but we should not see this as the only time for us to think about how we can make sure families are getting those resources to help them take care of their kids. So I'd love to kind of continue the conversation with the folks on this call. And with that, I am going to stop talking and pass it back over to my colleagues.
Great, thank you so much, Ife. Okay, and so we'll get started. So I want to start off just giving a quick background on what the expanded child tax credit is. Some of you might be familiar with it, some might not, so just so that we have a baseline to start with. So the 2021 expanded CTC meant more money and more families eligible to receive this money. So what did that look like? That looked like an increase in the actual amount of money that families could receive from originally $2,000 to $3,600 per child 0 to 5, and $3,000 per child ages 6 through 17. The age threshold was also lifted, where the cutoff was at 16. It's now 17. So anyone under the age of 18 can be claimed as a dependent to receive this. There's no minimum income requirement, so families with no earned income are eligible for the full credit. The credit is fully refundable, meaning families are eligible for the full amount even if they don't owe taxes. And families were eligible to receive half of the CTC in 2021 and half when they filed their taxes this year, or the full credit if they did not get advance payments in 2021. And we'll get into a little bit into that as well. There's some nuances around that now that we're in the post-tax season and what that means, but we'll talk about that. So this is just a great example of how much money is still on the table for families who haven't claimed the credit. If we're looking at a family with a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 7-year-old, in total for the 2021 CTC, that family would receive $10,200. And that's an exceptional amount of money, especially when you think about the fact that families that currently don't have earned income could qualify to receive those funds. And in addition, a family like this may also qualify for other money through stimulus payments they didn't receive or other state or federal taxes. So who is eligible for the 2021 CTC and how do they claim it? So an adult can have a social security number or an individual taxpayer ID number or an ITIN, but children must have social security numbers, and those social security numbers must be valid for employment. The dependent must be the adult's child, including adopted grandchild or stepchild, a younger sibling, step sibling or half sibling, or their descendant, or a foster child placed by a government agency. And the dependent must have lived with the adult in the US for more than half the year. There's some exceptions around, things like babies born in the second half of 2021, but essentially a child must have lived with the person claiming them for 6 months and a day. Those 6 months do not have to be consecutive, but cumulatively, it has to be that they were with them for 6 months and a day in 2021. And the dependent did not provide over half of their own support in 2021 either. So one of the biggest changes that around who qualifies after the post-tax season this year is around ITINs. So as I mentioned, yes, adults with social security numbers or ITINs can claim the CTC for children who have social security numbers. If that adult has a current ITIN, they can still file to claim the CTC and potentially other credits, even though the tax season is over. If they have an expired ITIN, they can also still claim the 2021 CTC in the post-tax season by submitting a Form W-7 to renew their ITIN and filing a tax return. And we have a link here from the IRS on what that process looks like. We're going to share all these links out. I'm going to put as many of them in the chat afterwards as I can, but you'll also get a follow-up email with all of this information along with the slide deck, as Nia mentioned. The biggest change, though, is that unfortunately, if a family did not have an ITIN prior to the end of the tax season, they can no longer claim the 2021 expanded CTC. They can still apply for an ITIN to file taxes and potentially claim credits in future years, but if they didn't have an ITIN or hadn't filed for an extension by April 18th of this year, they're no longer eligible for the 2021 CTC. And the biggest message that we have for you today is that even though tax day has passed, families can still claim the CTC. And in fact, there's still a lot of families out there who may not realize that they are eligible for this credit and still haven't claimed it. So individuals with no or low incomes, and this is important to remember in thinking about outreach moving forward in the coming weeks and actually years. Individuals with no or low incomes can generally still file without penalty. So somebody who didn't know they were eligible, didn't file taxes because they normally don't, because their income is too low, they can actually still file a tax return and there's no penalty for filing a late tax return. If they're required to file but are due a refund from the IRS, they can also still file without penalty. And individuals have 3 years to claim any tax credits they are owed. So this is because there is a 3-year look back in tax returns that essentially the 2021 CTC, expanded CTC, will be on the table to be claimed through tax season 2025. What's really important about what we're doing right now is we want to do this big push because Get CTC is open, it's simplified filing, and it can make it a lot easier for people who don't normally file taxes and may be hesitant because they just don't want to go through the process. But even after that November 15th deadline, there is still reason to be doing outreach and sharing this information with families who have yet to claim the credit. And for individuals worried about filing because they owe the IRS, it's also still worth filing because the credit will go towards paying off their debts. I'm just going to take a quick look in the chat and see if there's anything. Okay, great. All right, so talking about getctc.org. It is a simplified filing tool that helps people claim the CTC and the third stimulus payment. It's an IRS-approved official e-file provider created by Code for America. It's available in English and Spanish. It's mobile-friendly and has chat support available, and it will be open until November 15th of 2022. And who can use getctc.org to claim the CTC? So individuals who have not yet filed a 2021 tax return. So if somebody filed a tax return and didn't claim the credit and is now realizing that they could have been eligible to claim the credit, they can't file to claim the credit through Get CTC. They would have to do a full return or an amendment on the return, which we'll talk about as well. They have to have made under $12,550 if they're filing single, or $25,100 if they're married filing jointly in 2021. They have to have earned less than $400 in self-employment income. They have to have, as we mentioned, a social security number, an individual taxpayer ID number, and the children who they claim need to have social security numbers. They must have lived in the 50 states or DC or a US military facility, and they did not have advanced premium tax credits. So these are credits received to lower monthly health insurance premiums. You're still eligible for the expanded CTC if you receive those credits, but you just have to file a full return. And I'm going to play a quick demo video on the Get CTC app. So hold on just one moment.
This video will show you how to use the 2022 edition of Code for America's simplified tax filing portal, Get CTC. Get CTC allows families without a tax filing obligation to file a simplified 2021 tax return to access the child tax credit and the third stimulus payment.
Okay.
Get CTC e-files a simplified return directly with the IRS in May 2022. Note that we constantly update the tool in response to user feedback, so it may look a little different later in the year. First, Get CTC will go through a few steps to confirm that it's the right tool for me. The tool asks first how I'm filing my return, single or married. Then the tool confirms that the IRS allows me to use simplified filing, since households with higher incomes or other special circumstances, like self-employment income, are required to file a full return. If, for example, I'm not sure what counts as self-employment income, additional information is available below. Get CTC will then warn me that I could get even more money by filing a full return, since I can't get the EITC or state credits from this tool. To get the first two stimulus payments, I would have to file a 2020 tax return. Those who choose to file a full return or back taxes are sent to Get Your Refund, which allows families to file using VITA services. For now, I'll opt to continue with this tool. Next, Get CTC will ask me a few other questions to confirm I'm eligible to use the tool. It lists a few additional and rare scenarios that Get CTC does not support, and will ask whether I already filed a 2021 return this year. If I already submitted a return, the IRS would reject a new one I filed through this tool. Then, Get CTC will confirm I lived in the 50 states, DC, or a US military facility last year, since overseas and territory residents are currently not eligible to use simplified filing. Finally, it will confirm that no one can claim me as a dependent, since that would make me ineligible for the CTC and stimulus checks. I've now confirmed I'm eligible to use Get CTC. In the next section, Get CTC asks for some basic information about me. I'll enter my name, date of birth, and social security number. Note that I could also enter an ITIN. As required by the IRS, Get CTC asks for my phone number. It also asks if I was a member of the armed forces in 2021, since that could impact the amount of my recovery rebate credit. As required by the IRS, Get CTC asks if I am legally blind. Finally, Get CTC asks me to agree to the privacy policy. Then the tool will check if I filed a 2020 return. If I did, Get CTC would collect my 2020 adjusted gross income, which the IRS requires from filers for authentication purposes. In this case, I'll say that I didn't file last year. On this page, we ask clients the contact method we can use to best reach them. Note, Get CTC does not require clients to create an account and does not require them to have an email address. Clients simply have to sign up using their email or their phone. In this case, I'll choose to sign up by phone. Get CTC will send me a 6-digit code that I must enter to confirm it's mine. For the purposes of this demo, I'll enter a fake code on this page. Note that if I don't finish my return in one sitting, I can log back in and continue using this contact method. Next, if I were filing married, Get CTC would collect needed information about my spouse, their name, date of birth, social security number or ITIN, and 2020 adjusted gross income, if applicable. In this case, I'm filing single, so Get CTC will skip this section. In the next section, Get CTC allows me to list my 2021 dependents. Rather than assume I've read all the tax rules, Get CTC asks me all the key questions I need to answer to make sure I can claim my dependents. Keep in mind that the pages clients see in this section very much depend on the answers they provide. First, I'll enter my dependent's basic information: name, date of birth, relationship to me, and SSN or ATIN. We ask about one specific scenario to confirm basic eligibility. Next, Get CTC will ask me to confirm a few more criteria. If at any point my dependent doesn't meet the main criterion, Get CTC will ask whether one or more valid exceptions apply. Behind the scenes, Get CTC will determine which credits my dependent is eligible for. Finally, Get CTC will show me a list of my dependents, including whether they are eligible for CTC or only for the third stimulus payment. I can keep repeating this process until all my dependents are recorded. For now, I'll say I only have one dependent. In the next section, Get CTC will determine my credit amounts. First, Get CTC will figure out how much CTC I can claim. The IRS requires families to report how much advanced CTC they received last year and subtract this from their total credit. Get CTC makes this process easier by calculating how much families should have received based on the dependents they provided earlier. I can say that I got this amount, a different amount, or no payment at all. In this case, I'll say I got the estimated amount. Get CTC calculates the remaining CTC available to me. Next, Get CTC will figure out how much recovery rebate credit I can claim, that is, the third stimulus payment. As with CTC, the IRS requires families to report how much they received last year. Again, Get CTC will display how much I should have received based on my family structure. In this case, I'll say I got a different amount. Get CTC will ask me to enter what I received and provide some tips about where to find this information. I'll say in this case that I received $200. Get CTC will then let me review the amount I'm claiming. Finally, Get CTC will collect my payment information and allow me to review and submit my return. I can select direct deposit or a mailed check. In this case, I'll select direct deposit. Get CTC asks me to confirm that my name is on the bank account, so the payment is not rejected. I'll provide my routing number and my account number. And finally, we'll have the chance to confirm my information. The IRS also requires that I provide my mailing address. Get CTC allows me to enter identity protection pins for anyone in my family who has one, and provides more information about what an IP pin is. I'll say that no one in my family has an IP pin. Now, I can review all the information I've submitted and go back to edit anything that's wrong. On this page, as required by the IRS, I set a 5-digit PIN that I can use to authenticate when I file next year. On the next page, I'll see a final summary of the payments I'm claiming. Next, I have the option to submit my driver's license information and my spouse's if I were filing married. Especially for clients without a tax filing history, the IRS may process returns and issue refunds faster if this information is submitted, and we recommend clients provide it if possible, but it is not required. If I don't have a driver's license or don't want to provide the information, I can skip this page. Finally, I'll agree to our terms on the last page, and I'll file. Just like that, I've filed my simplified return. Get CTC will alert me within a couple days whether my return has been accepted or rejected by the IRS. Most clients hear within a few hours. If my return was rejected, Get CTC will provide me with a plain language explanation of why, and allow me to log back in and resubmit my return. You can find Get CTC at getctc.org. For more resources about the CTC and stimulus payments, visit getctc.org/navigators.
Okay. So now we want to talk a little bit about what individuals who don't qualify to get on Get CTC, how they can still access the tax credit. So who might file a full tax return rather than file through getctc.org? So individuals making above the filing thresholds that we discussed, or who don't meet one of the other criteria for Get CTC that we went over, or who are also eligible for additional money through other credits, such as state credits or other tax credits, can access CTC through full tax filing. And so we are in a time where tax services, especially free tax services, are limited. I'm going to go over what we normally go over anyways, because you can use this information, and this information will be relevant when tax season opens back up again. But just noting that we're in a time, especially after November 15th, when getctc.org is no longer available, where the options for people to file a full return will be limited. So the first thing, obviously, the first option available to people is paid tax services. We are including a link here from the IRS on how people can identify highly qualified and reputable tax preparer if they do have to go through the paid tax services route. It's a great little about 10 questions that people can ask their tax preparers to make sure that they're going to somebody who will meet the standards and be high quality to help them assist their taxes, help them in assisting complete their taxes. There's also so some of the free tax assistance available, one of which is open right now and one of which will be open during tax season. The first is the ARP Foundation tax aid sites. These provide free in-person and virtual tax assistance. They're more focused on individuals who are 50 or over, and they have low to moderate income requirements. And that's a great resource when tax season opens back up. They are only open during tax season. The link is there for when tax season comes back around to identify the sites in your area. There's also low income taxpayer clinics, or LITCs. These are open currently. And a link here as well to find out where they are. They do not necessarily complete tax returns for individuals, but what they do is help individuals who are having custody issues figure out how to claim the credit if somebody else is claiming the credit. So for example, a grandparent who has full custody of the child, but the biological parent, their child, or whoever has actually claimed the credit, what can they do, and what recourse do they have, and how can they access the credit? This is a great resource for families in those types of situations. And then of course we have VITA sites. So there are some open VITA sites at this time of year. It depends on where you are. The open ones tend to be more centered and located in larger city areas, but there are some out there that are open. You know, you can go on getyourrefund.org to locate a VITA site just by putting in your zip code. You can also, getyourrefund.org is closed right now for tax preparation. They'll be back up January 31st, again when tax season opens, and when they are open, they'll have access to free do-it-yourself tax filing services, as well as free virtual tax filing assistance, limited capacity to that as well. But mainly right now, you can go to Get Your Refund to locate VITA sites or sign up to hear when the site is back up. And VITA sites are case by case. When they are back up, we always tell people even in tax season to call ahead of time, because every site is different. Some require appointments, some do not. And providing that sort of information for people is kind of helps to reduce barriers to individuals actually getting the assistance or going through, because we don't want anyone showing up and then not being able to be seen and then not coming back again to get assistance for that. For married people, both partners must go to file their taxes. And some VITA sites do assist with amendments. So again, if somebody filed their taxes already this year, they can't use Get CTC, but they didn't realize that they were eligible to receive the CTC, they can get their tax return amended. This is, again, depends on the VITA site, so you want to ask ahead of time if they'll amend taxes as well. And I want to go over some common barriers and concerns, questions that come up usually around CTC and claiming it, and who qualifies. So one of the big questions that comes up is whether or not this impacts other public benefits. And this does not impact other public benefits. It's not going to change any federally funded public benefits like Social Security, SNAP, childcare subsidies, or WIC. We've also had this question come up about public housing. Receiving the credit should not be counting towards income and raise someone's cost in public housing settings. Will receiving the CTC affect someone's immigration status or ability to get a green card? The answer to that is also no. So under the current law, receiving the CTC or other tax credits does not affect someone's immigration status, their ability to get a green card, or future immigration plans, it's not considered a public charge determination by USCIS. Will the IRS share someone's immigration status with other government agencies? The answer to that is also no. The IRS is forbidden to share an individual's tax information with other agencies. There are limited exceptions to this, and this is related to certain criminal investigations or to determine someone's tax liability. Again, we have another great resource here from the IRS website. And we also say that messaging around this should be centered on the fact that if somebody does show up with this particular case, that they should be referred to legal services, legal aid, or an immigration lawyer as well for their particular case. And we discussed this already about the ITIN and who qualifies at this point to claim the CTC with the ITIN. So I won't go over that again. And will an individual ever have to pay this money back? So first, the CTC is not a loan. If someone receives payments for a child who is no longer their dependent, they may have to pay that money back. And that's centered around how much income, what their income levels are. So there's some protections for those with incomes below 40,000, 50,000 for heads of households, and 60,000 for married couples. There are more limited protections, as you can see, as income levels go up. And what if someone has not filed tax returns in recent years? We talked about this a little already as well. So as we mentioned before, people with very low incomes are generally not required to file. Even if they're required to file, there's generally not a penalty if the IRS owes someone a refund from something like the EITC. Taxpayers can file for the past 3 years to receive the refunds that they're owed. As we mentioned as well, there's a 3-year look back. And messaging around this as well is important to let people know that even if they owe child support or taxes, they can benefit from claiming the CTC. The credit will essentially go towards paying off the outstanding child support or taxes first, and they'll receive any amount left over. And if it all goes towards what is owed, that reduces their debt and means they'll be able to get tax credits in future years. And this is just a quick note on IRS letter 6419. This specifically went out to individuals who had received the CTC at the end of 2021. So this might not be coming up as much now because people have already filed their taxes. But in the case of somebody who received the first half, but for whatever reason did not file their taxes or weren't required to file their taxes and maybe are now deciding to go and file their tax returns to get the second half of the CTC, when they do file the full return, they will have to present letter 6419. There's been some back during the tax season, there was some reporting that the amount on the letter wasn't matching what a family received or what they thought they had received. And in that case, we recommend everyone be directed to their IRS online account that has the most up-to-date information on what payments they received from the IRS. And now I want to talk briefly about child tax credit outreach, especially in thinking about the coming 6 weeks before Get CTC closes. So these are just some findings that we've had from our own experience and from partners' experiences in doing this work. So outreach that is integrated into existing programs and communications is very effective. When families receive multilingual information multiple times, it's also effective. And outreach should include clear info on how to claim the credit. So, we have a lot of different flyers available in our toolkit, and there's all of them include, for the most part, an ability to edit. So in doing outreach, in especially mass outreach or just flyering and things like that, families should receive information on where to go to next to help in the process so that it makes it a little bit easier to claim the credit. It just helps remove a roadblock. Many families will not need additional assistance filing after they are directed to getctc.org. So if any sort of organization is working to do outreach, especially right now in Get CTC, it's important to know that the outreach can be designed to provide additional assistance when requested, but doing things like making it necessary for a family to schedule an appointment to get on Get CTC can actually create a roadblock and should only be presented when if somebody actually asks for that assistance. Most families are able to get right on and use Get CTC and move through the process. And school districts and government benefit agencies are among the most trusted sources of information for families. So getting this information out through those sorts of channels can be really beneficial. Text messages, for example, from schools or agencies have been especially effective, along with robocalls, emails, and mailers that can also be effective. And in addition to hearing from trusted community messengers, families may need to hear from tax, immigration, or family law experts. We talked about this a little bit as well, in sorts of cases where there might be exceptions to the rules or just be a little bit more nuanced for a particular family or community. It's important to have information or resources that families can be referred to help them navigate through the process with a little more ease. And we have a new website up, childtaxcreditoutreach.org. This, again, is in partnership with Partnership for America's Children, Coalition on Human Needs. All our resources are up there as well. A lot of the links that I'm sharing now will be up there as well. So you can access all this information in one place. And these are links to some of our toolkits. I'll share that as well in the chat. I know if I shared her toolkit, all sorts of different resources available to get information out and share with families in Georgia. And here we have toolkits that are for partners, public agencies, families, and schools specifically. And this is just a list of some of the things that are in our toolkits. And then just additional images of what's in there as well. And quickly, I want to touch on the Affordable Connectivity Program. We've been sharing information out on this as well, because a lot of the same community members that can benefit from this outreach on the CTC can also qualify and benefit from the ACP. So the Affordable Connectivity Program, individuals are eligible if their household income is under 200% of the FPL, or if they or someone they live with currently receives a government benefit such as SNAP, Medicaid, WIC. The benefit includes up to $30 a month discount on internet services, or up to $75 a month discount if the household is on qualifying tribal lands. And there's a one-time discount of up to $100 for a laptop, tablet, or desktop computer. We have the link there for it as well. I think we link to more information in our toolkits. But this is just another benefit that we're working to share information out on, and that families who can really benefit from the CTC could also benefit from as well. And here's my contact information. I'll pop that in the chat along with everybody else's. And we'll open it up to Q&A. So while everyone's thinking of any questions you might have, I will try to add a lot of the links that I shared in the chat as well for you to have.
Hello?
Hi, yeah. Cassandra, we can hear you.
So I'm Cassandra, I'm with Children First in Athens, Georgia, and was just interested in being able to see how we could help some of the people that we service with this process, but just had an additional question or a clarifying question.
Sure.
Those persons who received the monthly payments for child tax credit in 2021, do they need to go through this process, or will they just get that when they file their 2022 taxes?
So if they receive the automatic payments in the first half, but didn't get the second half by filing taxes in tax season this year, you mean?
Right.
They would have to file a tax return for 2021. So they would have to file a back tax return. So if they haven't filed at all, which can be for various reasons, but let's say they haven't filed just because their income is low enough to not have to file, they can either, well, technically they can actually go on Get CTC now until November 15th, or after the 15th, file a back tax return to get the second half of the payments, if they meet all the criteria to use Get CTC.
Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding you.
Sure.
When they filed they got payments in monthly in 2021. So when they filed their 2021 taxes, would they not have gotten the other half?
Well, that depends on their particular case. So
Okay.
if they didn't claim on that 2021 tax return for the CTC and didn't receive it, then they have to do an amendment to that tax return. If the case is that they just didn't file a tax return, they would have to file a back tax return for
Okay.
2021.
Okay.
Or they can use
But in
Get
all,
CTC.
they should have received 3 payments.
They would have received payments in the fall, which depending on when they start, if they automatically start receiving them in, I believe it was July, they got 6 payments. But you know, people could have signed up later on and then gotten a larger lump sum. And then they would get the second payment by filing their tax return this past tax season or using Get CTC.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, no problem. Nia, I think we have one other hand raised, Marielena. Marielena, I'm not sure if you still have a question or not, if you want to put it in the chat, but if not, you can always reach out to us and shoot us an email. Sorry that we couldn't get your audio on. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to answer your question. If there's no other questions, we will finish up. Again, as I mentioned, all these resources, all the links, the recording, the slides will be shared with you via emails in the next day or two, and contact information for us if you have any additional questions. Please reach out. We'd love to hear what's going on, and we're here to support everyone with resources or information, anything like that. So, and thank you so much for being here. Thank you for our partners in bringing this presentation, this webinar to the Georgia community, and look forward to hearing about your outreach in the coming weeks. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great afternoon.